Hey everybody, Michael Snyder here, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is March 14th, and today we're taking a look at this atmospheric river moving into the Pacific Northwest. Going to bring us a pretty rainy day here today and on into Tuesday morning. You can see the very cold air behind this is going to give us a thunderstorm threat across the region going on into tomorrow. We'll take a look at that in some detail. Then you can see further out over the Pacific, there are some storm systems that will continue to come into our area here through this next week. And this is infrared satellite imagery here. This kind of shows how cold the cloud tops are. And you notice this area up here isn't moving with this yellow and red. That's the really chilly Arctic air surface up there. So that's why it doesn't seem to be moving there. It's kind of the infrared satellite just showing that it's really cold. Checking out the weather around the rest of the country here, we have some severe threat through Texas. We'll look at that briefly here in a second, but there's some winter weather advisories, the Great Lakes, and for the Cascades, of course, some fire danger down towards West Texas there. And check out this red spot out here, this low water advisory. I've never seen this advisory before. If you guys want to check that out and see what the exact reason for that is, I don't know if it's low tide related or not, but it's mainly for boat navigational hazards. But if you want some homework, check that out and report back in my comments below. So looking at that severe threat out in Texas is mainly a hail threat. You can see there's an area for some significant hail just near Dallas and pushing on the east through eastern Texas there. Marginal tornado threat through the areas down there too. So if you're traveling down there to Texas or have any interest down there, heads up for that. Now back to the Pacific Northwest. Here's a NAM 3 cam showing this atmospheric river impacting our area, bringing some pretty good mountain snow, especially to higher terrain here. Some pretty good snow totals coming up through here. We'll take a look at that in some detail too. But check this out. Eastern Washington getting a pretty good swath of precipitation going on through tonight into tomorrow morning. And you can see, again, not much for the eastern slopes of the Cascades. Maybe a little bit of snow for the southern portions there. But again, this is where the most severe drought lies in our area. And then you'll see as we go into Tuesday, you can see with more westerly flow, much colder air aloft will be moving in, a chance for some thunderstorms. Even some rotating thunderstorms are possible tomorrow with some small hail and lightning and maybe even a funnel cloud or two. We'll look into that in some detail here in a moment. And you can see the Bitterroots and the Rockies out here through Idaho and Montana getting some pretty good snowfall with this system as this cold air kind of barrels in. And the Cascades, especially northern half of Oregon going into Washington, you get some really good amounts here through Wednesday morning as the snow continues on really until Wednesday afternoon for some parts of the North Cascades. So this is looking at 5,000 feet, 850 millibar temperature. Now as we look at this, you can see this cold air kind of plow into the region here. And this is plenty cold for thunderstorm activity or even funnel cloud activity through the Pacific Northwest here. And this would be about the time here, probably Tuesday early afternoon, tomorrow early afternoon. You need this about 8 degrees colder than the surface. So we should be up around 10 degrees Celsius. So this is plenty. This is 13 degrees colder than that. That's plenty cold. And at 10,000 feet, you need it to be about 18 degrees colder than the surface, which again, 10 minus negative 13, you're looking at 23 degrees Celsius colder. So plenty cold for the lapse rates as far as they go. And then as we look at 0 to 3 helicity, you need it about 150 or more. So you need the second shade of blue here. So as we dive in and look even a little bit closer, let's go to Washington State. And you can see that there are some areas, especially over Port Orchard area, where there are some helicity values are going to be enough. I think that this is more has to do with the lee area of the Olympics, and I think there's a Olympic velocity shear zone is going to be in action tomorrow. So this is where I would set up if you guys want to get out there and possibly see a rotating thunderstorm. I think that the Kitsap Peninsula is where you want to be tomorrow. There's some thunderstorm potential through the convergence zone also, and with any stronger shower that moves anywhere through western Washington, really. Then that threat's going to be through eastern Washington as well for some thunderstorms. But you can see this helicity pick up early afternoon for some of these areas through here. And I'll show you why I favor the Kitsap Peninsula here in a second as well. So this is looking at 5,000 feet on the NAM. We're going to look closer at detail on the European here. Let's put this into motion. So as we go into Tuesday morning, you can see that we get a burst here through early afternoon. Notice the wind pick back up there. There's going to be the Olympic Mountains here kind of block the wind and it allows the wind to come through the Chehalis Gap there. And on the north side of that, we get some enhanced vorticity there, which can tend to enhance any kind of updraft going on and make it spin a little bit. So here is the significant tornado parameter. This is Tuesday morning. Notice nothing's going on yet, but you can see this really fire up here. And it does show some areas near the Kitsap Peninsula here. And we'll look at the European here too for a little bit more detail on this. So here, and then I try to overlay what kind of precipitation is going on top of that. So here's the atmospheric river going through into tonight. And then you can see the front passes as we get into Tuesday morning. You see those showers increase during the afternoon. Something like this could be rotating down here even too. But anything that would move through the Olympic velocity shear zone would potentially be rotating tomorrow. Now looking at the European here, this is lightning flash density. We'll get back to the Olympic velocity shear zone here in a minute. And as we go through into Tuesday, you'll see this lightning potential pop up there late morning, early afternoon. You can see everything through the Puget Sound, eastern Washington, even northeast Oregon, down towards Portland, even could get a thunderstorm too, as you can see here. Now looking, this is surface. Now this really shows that Olympic velocity shear zone well. You can see this wind coming through the Chehalis Gap here. You notice that's weaker here versus stronger here. So you kind of get that pinwheel effect down here, and that relative helicity at the surface tends to pick up. And this is where you could see some of these rotating updrafts here just on the south side of this white and blue line. And now, and here we go at 2,500 feet. You can see these winds pick up right there between 18 and 21. You see that surge of wind coming through there, which help to tend to enhance any kind of rotation going on through there. Here's at 5,000 feet. You notice that wind pick up there on into early Tuesday afternoon as well. So watch out for that. I would set up over the Kitsap Peninsula for that tomorrow if you guys are looking for a rotating updraft or perhaps a funnel cloud. Now let's look at total snow values. There's some big values coming for the Cascades here. As you can see, some of these areas through the coastal range and through the North Cascades are getting some pretty good amounts. It can be measured in feet in some of the higher terrain here. Not as much for Snoqualmie Pass, as the freezing level is not going to be quite low enough initially, but then it should lower pretty well as we go on into Tuesday afternoon. The snow should pile up to the Cascades pretty good. You can see the Oregon Cascades are left out a bit on this round versus the Washington Cascades or British Columbia, and portions of Idaho and the Rocky Mountains of BC on into Montana are going to get some decent amounts too as we go into the future on Thursday evening here. Now here's the European. This is 10,000 feet. This is current, or actually this was as of last night, but I'm going to show you this very cold air aloft that we saw on the infrared satellite imagery here. You can see that move into our region here and give us our chance for convection and maybe a funnel cloud through western Washington here. And that funnel cloud, you could even see something like that down towards Portland or eastern Washington as well into tomorrow. Then you'll see that air kind of move out, the colder air move out, and then you'll see some more systems as this cold air develop out over the ocean here. And the next windstorm potential I'm looking at is still on into next week, and there could be some development with this colder air as this we get a weak low developing here, but if it comes in a bit stronger, it could cast a pretty good gradient across western Washington, western Oregon, southwest BC here on into the future. I'm going to put this into motion and go out in the extended here, and you can see again another one trying to break at the very end of the European. This is a pretty strong low pressure here too showing up, but again we're getting out in fantasy land here, but just showing you that there is a potential for a windstorm to come up here still next weekend and on into next week. So we're just keeping our eyes on that right now. There's been no model agreement so far. It's been very wish-washy back and forth. So now looking at that atmospheric river, you can see this is the one impacting us now. Going through today, pretty good atmospheric river, category 2. See that frontal system pass, that cold air moves over western Washington, Oregon, eastern Washington into BC. And then on its heels, you can see this next system has a subtropical tap too that's going to move through into Thursday morning, and you'll see some of that subtropical moisture get up towards Vancouver Island, Washington, and eventually into Oregon. And this was last night's run, the 060, the most recent European run. Now checking out precipitation total amounts, not much has changed since yesterday since we looked at this. Pretty good amounts for the Olympics, coastal range, Vancouver Island, North Cascades, Southern Cascades getting in on it, and the Cascades of Oregon getting their fair share as well. And much needed rain down into California here, but this kind of cuts off like we talked about yesterday down here at the Bay Area. And they really need this rain over the Sacramento Valley here in Southern California, but they're just not going to get too much of it this round. I mean, a little bit gets down in there, but they need a lot more than that. Now checking out this is last night's European run. So this is, I'm going to show you some windstorm potential coming up here. So this is the system moving through This is our cold air coming into the region tomorrow here with this low that moves through British Columbia. And then you can see another system that moves through. This is one coming in Thursday morning, and you can see that system move through here. And on through this next weekend, there's potential for a low developing on the southern periphery of this main Gulf of Alaska low here. And so we'll watch that one for some possible development. Again, no good model agreement on this yet, and the system looks fairly weak on the European, even though some of the ensembles are saying it could have a punch with it. Another system dives towards the Queen Charlotte Islands here and would bring some more precipitation in a frontal system for Pacific Northwest on into next week. And then in the extended of the European here, you can see this big low really moving north tip Vancouver Island. And this would be a fairly windy scenario for some areas. Not a groundbreaking windstorm or a very significant windstorm, but it's got potential. So we'll just watch that one too. And looking at the GFS, great agreement, of course, as always in the short term, as this colder air moves in behind this system for tomorrow and the atmospheric river ends. And then here comes that Thursday system, and you'll see that kind of parent low here in the Gulf of Alaska and a little bit of a development towards Vancouver Island. It looks very weak at this time, so we're not expecting a windstorm, but you see some late development here too. So we might get some breezy conditions as we get this pressure rise behind any system that would move through here on Saturday. So kind of watching that for some potential wind across the region, and then you'll go out into the future here. And this system kind of skirts through northern British Columbia here, would probably being a frontal system, then a ridge builds, but not for long, is some more troughing and potentially a chillier system later on into March on the GFS here, as this trough kind of opens up over us here in the west. But we're way off into fantasy land here. Nothing to be worried about yet, just something to keep an eye on. And here's Seattle, Tacoma. And this is for the wind coming through tomorrow afternoon, just into the 20s, maybe around 30 miles an hour, something similar to what we got last night. No big deal across the region. And then we look out into the extended here, and you can see some smatterings of 50-mile-per-hour gusts and a few into the 40s, but nothing, no good agreement anywhere out here, just a chance at a little bit of a gale out here in the future. But we'll keep our eye on that. And here's Seattle, Tacoma. You can see last night's ensemble runs have this atmospheric river. Not a huge rainmaker for Seattle, but we could get up towards an inch maybe. And then you can see the other systems moving through on Friday night and into next week, and perhaps one off into the future here too. With some of the ensembles, some pretty good precipitation amounts on into next week. But again, a lot of time to look at that. And back to the infrared satellite imagery again, we've got this atmospheric river, then we're going to get this cold air and potential thunderstorm tomorrow. If you like funnel clouds, keep your eyes open. If the sky gets dark, watch those bases of those dark clouds as they roll by you there. Get some video of that, and maybe we'll spot a funnel cloud somewhere across Pacific Northwest tomorrow with all this cold air and some decent helicity values moving through there. We really have all the parameters there for a chance for a cold core funnel going through here. This is a coastal tornado threat by National Weather Service here. You can see that 0 to 3 helicity I talked about. When you're greater than 150, that's what it's showing you on the NAM 3KM there. There are some areas that had that. We had the temperatures for 850 millibars, and ocean or land temperatures. 850 millibar wind speed, that was a check. Wind direction was a check. It was mostly westerly, southwesterly, and the 700 millibar temperatures are plenty cold, and the 500 millibar wind direction should be out of the west-southwest. So we do check all these boxes tomorrow, so heads up for that. And I'll do a video as always tomorrow, or I'll try to. I try not to miss more than one day at a time, and I'll keep trying to put these out every day. But I hope you guys are enjoying the rainfall today. Enjoy that, because when the summer comes, it does get dry around here, and we do need to tamper some of these drought concerns. Eastern Washington, like we saw, was getting some pretty good precipitation out of this event, so that's much needed for them. Eastern Oregon, not quite as lucky, but maybe there will be some hope in the future here with this troughs dropping out of the northwest and the extended. We'll have to keep our eye on that, and we'll watch out for some windstorm potential here coming up in the next week or two. Nothing major showing up just yet, but we'll keep our eye on that. So hope you guys are having a good day, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.